next big thing is the divisions themselves. So we talked already about whether or not the playoffs should get changes, that kind of stuff. But the new divisional groups. So we've actually tried to show, as far as I could tell, there is nowhere online that actually shows you the new groups in a visual format. So we've done it for you. We've done it via the power rankings stuff. So we've taken the power rankings that we made last week and we've turned them instead into kind of power rankings of the groups that are existing.
We have agility with our graphics team.
Very, very agile, very agile. So we've got the 4 Chinese teams, Chengdu, Guangzhou, Spark, and Dragons. And then we've got the Pacific teams that we saw back in week 1, I think.
Plus Seoul Dynasty.
And the Seoul Dynasty, who are in Los Angeles, who presumably came over here to dodge coronavirus in Korea and then just got stuck here or something.
I feel like Korea might be
I think so.
To stay.
Yeah, Korea actually looks better than here at the moment. And then we've got all of the Atlantic teams. I saw people on Twitter, some fans, not really understanding why this had happened. It's obviously due to latency. It's all of those Atlantic teams are on the East Coast. They can all play with easy ping. The furthest away is Houston, who still only gets 50 ping. And then the Pacific teams, the furthest away is Dallas. They get 50 ping.
Did you just have to explain where teams are located in a city-based league and how ping works?
Imagine how dumb some people are.
A lot of people.
I was just clarifying.
A lot of people don't get that, though, as well. I mean, they probably think, well, I play on 90 ping on ranked, and it's fine. You know? So it's like, but the more you minimize it, the more the competitive integrity of what little we have left in this league is intact. You know, we got to make...
There's a part of me that wants to see it all burn, though, and have Atlantic teams play teams in, like, China.
On 300 ping.
Yeah, I'll get up at, like, 1 a.m., pour a glass of gin and just cast that. That'd be excellent.
Gin?
So
that's all I got left. It's all I got left.
So this is going to be the setup for the future. We'll see those same Atlantic teams playing each other, and we've seen the Atlantic teams play each other over and over again, but that'll feel like a kind of 10-team. It'll almost be like going back to Overwatch League Season 1, but only with the Atlantic teams. And the part where it gets interesting is the Pacific teams playing against each other and the Chinese teams. The Chinese teams are going to be playing at Chinese times, and only 4 of them just constantly playing each other over and over and over again. That's a weird system. I think we're going to get totally different metas as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be like it was
I'm okay with
before
that,
the Overwatch League, right? When we had these different metas developing. I remember way back when China used to just... It felt like that region just chucked shit at the wall and saw what stuck. And we always saw like Sombra play, some really interesting stuff come out from China as a region.
They loved McCree. But that was Chinese players as well, and there aren't that many Chinese players actually in the Chinese division.
But I still think we will see these little metas develop. Because they're not going to get the opportunity to scrum outside of that. They'll scrum some contenders teams most likely as well. Like they should get pretty good ping. I think all the Chinese teams, with the exception of Chengdu, are based in Korea, right? So they have...
yes, I believe so.
Theoretically, Asia should be the highest level of play, I think, in terms of the regions, based on the quality of scrim partners they have.
And you look at the quality of teams. Shanghai Dragons, we were thinking, should be a top 3, top 4 team. And then the Hangzhou Spark and Charge and Hunters were all pushing top 10 in some kind of different area. And
that should be super competitive.
So, like, this is why I want to see... Sorry to go back to the previous playoff points, but I think it just hammers it home how much we need to see all of these teams play. Because it could be a world in which all of these teams are just very good equally, and only 2 of them make playoffs out of the Asian division, which would be a real shame.
Or like, you'd have a lot of those teams potentially be really strong and some of them not make it in just because they have to play against the strong teams. That's kind of why. Like the Dragons play the Hunters 6 times.
Yeah.
And the Valiant play the Shock 4 times.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And then Seoul plays the Shock and the Gladiators 3 times each.
How do we think this will shake out then? The topic is one that Jonathan suggested actually, which is who's the best of these new groups. Which groups do you think? Which groups do you think are going to be better though? Like, do you think that? Do you agree with Bren?
Do you mean like overall, like pitting Asia against Pacific?
Yeah, like overall, there will probably be some groups that are better than others.
I think the LA teams will be pretty strong with Titans, Shock, Gladiators.
Yes, I agree.
And then the Valiant aren't bad either. Like the only legit bad team would be like potentially Dallas.
Yeah. I feel like you can't sleep on any group though, because I agree with your sentiment that Asia is really strong, right? Because they'll be practicing in Korea and they have Shanghai is looking really good. at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, Atlantic's not going to be that good. And they have New York, Atlanta, and Philly. So it's
And
like...
Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Atlanta-
Paris, Bren,
Bro,
Bren the Paris
don't forget
simp.
Paris, fam. Don't forget, don't sleep on Paris.
I think
it's just
Atlantic's
like
just going to keep doing
unreal
what's going on. Like, Atlantic's still going to have New York, Philly, and Paris, and Atlanta probably just roll the rest of the people.
Yeah.
They could, but also it's they're all going to be. It is going to be weird to see how the Atlantic side plays out, or how the East Coast division plays out, because you're going to have. It's going to be like Overwatch League Season 1, where just the bottom tier teams are just kind of practicing amongst themselves, and they rarely get scrims with the... it's like almost a hierarchy, right? Where the top tier teams would scrim against each other quite a lot, but they kind of very rarely, every now and then, they'll give a crumb to Boston.
I wonder how
or
much this
Toronto,
changes, though, for the Atlantic teams, because I assume they were all scrimming like online for months. So they've been used to playing online Overwatch with like not high ping, but with a ping.
And also, to be fair, I think if you're an East Coast team and the quality of games is better, you will also bite the bullet and scrim against from West to East Coast.
Yes,
with
at
90 ping or whatever.
Yeah.
Because
especially if you're like an Atlanta and you're playing against New York and Philly that week, and you can't practice against either of those. Hell yeah, you practice against the Shock or the Titans or somebody that's over in LA.
Well, even figure out styles. You guys mentioned metas before, and sometimes you'd want to scrim with a bad ping just to figure out what the opponents are doing and to get actual scrim footage. Because remember, all those coaches and analysts, they're recording all of those scrims, and then they'll go back and see like, okay, what are the Pacific teams doing that we aren't, etc. How can we counter them? Especially come playoffs. I mean, despite the ping disadvantage, you'd want to practice against other regions just to figure out the other region before you go to playoffs or whatever. So we'll definitely see that.
Do you think, in a way, we could see a higher level of play because teams don't have to travel and they have the extra time with the hero pools to scrim a little bit more and flesh it out?
I'm glad you brought this up, because with all these teams being based in a singular location again, I feel like I'm actually kind of glad for this, because we're going to see almost a return to last year, where the bar has been raised. One of my biggest gripes with this season of the Overwatch League was because of all the travel, the lack of practice time. For the casual viewer, this is going to sound very five-head pretentious of me, but it's very apparent of the level of play went down when Hero Pulse was introduced and when they're traveling all the time. Like, it's not as clean. It's not as precise when they're playing the game.
I mean, there's some very obvious ways that you can see. There's just no set strats.
Yes.
Like, you just never see set stuff being
And I
planned.
think we're going to see a return to that, which I am so happy to see, if we do see it. But I'm almost confident that we will, because these teams got no choice now but to sit in their little bunkers, eat instant ramen, and just grind out the game like little gremlins.
And there's also this meme, I mean, dating back forever, right? In Counter-Strike, that Counter-Strike would always have like different results online because it's a different atmosphere and it's different conditions. So I think a lot of teams will just step it up because they don't have to play in front of like a home crowd or whatever.